Joining us now, he is the head coach of the South Florida Bulls. He has been a Bull as a baseball player, an assistant coach, and as a head coach. He's the guy who wears the colors of the alma mater over 40 years. I speak of the legendary Ken Eriksen joining us here on In the Circle. I mean, your blood, I'm sure if you kind of started bleeding, it'd be green, right?
Well, yeah, hopefully USF green and not Martian green. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I bring that up because this past fall you got honored by the alumni there. It's a distinguished alumni award there, which is not they don't just hand those out. To explain that, what was that like to get that award? Because again, that's a pretty a unique award that the alumni doesn't just hand out on like candy.
No, it was very humbling. Well, first of all, the question I had to Bill McCausland, who was the alumni director. I go, Bill, in all honesty, did everybody else die? And he was like, well, funny you said that. You have to be alive to receive this award. I go, okay, there you go. So, but it was interesting piece that because obviously being an alum of the university, being around a long time and being able to accomplish a lot of things due to time, the university recognized myself as a distinguished alumni and was told that we've only had 90 of those people in the history of the university. And the first one from athletics, whether it's an athlete, coach, or this and that, which I happen to be both. And so it was a tremendous honor. But the interesting part, Eric, is I looked to the left and the distinguished alum that I was going up with, two of them, the other two guys. And one guy is Professor Emeritus at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, the head of all the hospitality stuff in the Southeast, and he's the go-to guy. And he's also got a Professor Emeritus at another school. And the guy to my right was the president of Virginia Commonwealth University, one of the most esteemed chemistry professors in the country. And here I am, the guy that does this, and all of a sudden you're having to get up and speak in front of everybody and trying to make sure that people realize, that we're teachers and that we've all had some type of influence on young people. And so once again, very humbling award, no question.
What's it been like for you? Because you've been honored by your school, your alma mater, obviously your school there in South Florida, but you've also been honored by the city as well. What's it been? What's it like when you get honored? Because you're not one that likes that attention. You're a very private person. You like the attention to be on the players and things like that. But you've done a lot for that for the area, really. Just not just your school, but you've done the area. You've helped grow the sport of softball in that area.
Well, Eric, it's a great question. I think sometimes those awards are for other people to enjoy the fact that they're giving you awards, right? I'm very appreciative of them, but it's not something that you go into business or go into academia or go into athletics expecting, like, to get into, like, listening to Major League Baseball guys go, I didn't get into this to go into the Hall of Fame. I didn't get into this to get this and that. You get into it because you enjoy what you're doing. And I wouldn't have been doing this for as long as I have unless I enjoyed teaching, and teaching the game that I love. And becoming a student of the game to me was really, really important and instilled upon me as a young person. But, to give life lessons along the way, to get a great education along the way and have life experiences, not just nationally, but internationally, lend themselves towards, context and being a messenger for the future generations. And however you may see that, and I'm not the only one. There's so many millions of people out there to do the same thing. And it just so happened to be for me in Tampa. And because we've had decent teams, you get recognized for that. And having decent programs with USA Softball, you get recognized for that because, once again, one of the lessons I try to teach our young kids is that unrecognizable teams have unrecognizable players. And if you're selfish on the ball field and you worry about hitting 400, but your team is 5-40, nobody knows you. But if your team is going to the World Series and you hit 285, you got a great chance to be an All-American. So get all in on the community part of team play. And I feel like I've done that here at USF, and I feel like I've done that here in Tampa.
And of course, you got one of your former players has been making headlines recently. Ronnie Gajownik is becoming the first female manager in high minor league baseball there. What was your reaction when you heard the news, and your reaction to her now, and what you think she'll do in the big baseball up there in the professional level?
It wasn't a surprise by any stretch of imagination for me, knowing Ronnie and knowing Ronnie's acumen of the game. And once again, there's a young person that wanted to learn everything about the game, the bat and ball game, whether it was baseball or softball. And she played baseball and played softball. And then her and I were fortunate enough to be on the ball field at the same time up in Toronto during the Pan Am game. She was playing with USA Baseball, and I was coaching USA Softball. So I got to watch her play, and they won a gold medal up there, which was phenomenal. But, Ronnie got into fast pitch softball, into coaching, and I was hoping one day in actuality that she'd come back and coach with us here. But, she's making her own path when she jumped over the line to baseball and doing things that she loved to do there. And then obviously recognized for her acumen, for her experience, for her expertise in handling people and handling situations and being a leader. And very, very proud of her. We've had a couple of people like her that have that capability, but Ronnie has broken through, and people call it the glass ceiling or whatever. And, thank goodness at this point in history, there's a recognition of it doesn't matter on gender, it doesn't matter on race and culture and this and that. You're good, and she's good. And so I'm glad to see that she's getting a great opportunity.
Did you ever offer any advice to her? I mean, did you see this vision at all when she was playing for you? Like, I'm just kind of curious from that standpoint, as long as you've known her.
I saw the capabilities and the potential for us to be in leadership roles and to be in teaching roles and head coaching position roles. But no, she doesn't need advice from me. She's a very bright woman, and when she talks the game, you can already tell that. If she ever needed advice, and every once in a while the players will call back, and even she has at times and ask things in respect of where what do I need to do next. And if they ask, I give it to them, but I don't go out and I respect that they have their own well thought out opinions, well thought out plans of what they do, and I trust them completely. And she's in that realm.
2022 is the first year where you did not have responsibilities with USA Softball. How did it feel not to be involved? Did it feel strange? Did it feel good? You had some more free time? I mean, what was that like for you?
It's a great question. It was actually a great year for observation of what had gone on here in the program over the last 3-4 years when I wasn't here full time. And so after last year, there was some really good reassessing of what's going on, getting back to where, these are my complete expectations of what happens, and to get complete control back in respect of our player development program, our philosophy, our scouting reports, all those type of things. So moving forward, I feel pretty good about what we implemented this summer and the changes that we've made going forward, which is great. But, you have to think back on it also, is that as far as the University of South Florida softball went, we were in pretty good hands with Georgina Korick on the mound the last, 5 years, the COVID year included. So, it's kind of like boiling water. You can't really screw that up when you got a Korick. So it was fun, but we are in AC right now after Korick, right? So it's got to go back to some things that you have to adapt, and that's what the great part about college athletics is every year you have a new environment. You have new players coming in, new players, other players moving out, and so you have to adapt to what is going to be your strengths, over the time. And this fall we found out a lot also.
Well, you mentioned Georgina. It would not surprise me if down the road she joins you in getting a Distinguished Alumni Award. I think she's earned that, in my opinion. I may be a little biased. I would be remiss I didn't ask. Give us an update on Georgina, because there's a lot of fans that are of Georgina. So what is she up to now? And certainly the impact she's had in this program goes beyond on the field.
Yeah, there's no question she's going to be a first-round ballot Hall of Famer in the athletic department. There's no doubt about that. Once she gets through the waiting period, it's the best athlete that ever came through the University of South Florida. You don't get the accolades that she got as far as being the number one pitcher in the country, over the last year, maybe over the last 3 years, and the things she has done, for the school, on the ball field and even, in the press and so forth. But, she is, she's a competitor. She's with me right now as a GA. She continues to train to make sure that Great Britain has the best chance to get into the Olympics if it comes back in 2028. She almost single-handedly got GB there for the Tokyo Games, lost to Italy in the finals of the Europeans. But, she it's uncanny how mature she was at age 14, 15, 16 years old. And now to see a young woman actually becoming more respected nationwide in the things that she says. Listening to her talk in symposiums right now about pitching, about life. It's really, really. I'm very prideful of the fact that she also has the same degree that I have from the University of South Florida. But she's an independent woman that has great thoughts, and anybody that ever has a conversation with her, you're going to come back as a better person.
Incredible leader. I thought her and Alexis Johns did a great job leading your team last year, considering how young you were. I remember we spoke last year about how young your team is. It's evident. I mean, the good news now is you return a lot of them, over 20 players back from last year, but young team, and they kind of carried them. And I always was impressed. They all kind of fed off Georgina. They all followed her, and Alexis too on the other side. I thought that was significant. And obviously, you don't replace those type of people there, but it means other opportunities for new people to step into those roles.
Well, when you saw us play, and the interesting part was this: is that Georgina was not just our number one pitcher in the circle, but she was our number one bat girl. Okay, and you saw her, go get bats and talk to her teammates and this and that between every at bat, and was totally engaged. It wasn't one of those pitchers that sat on the bench and like, leave me alone. She was engaged with her teammates. Her teammates appreciated that. She brought an amount of energy, and that wasn't just last year. She did that all the time. And Lexi Johns was what a fabulous young woman that, she had another year of eligibility, but she walked in my office. She goes, "Coach, I have a big girl job waiting for me." And I'm like, well, this is life, and we don't have major contracts in like baseball does. So, she forego her last year eligibility, and she's working full time right now down in the Sarasota area. But we stay in contact. We're also going to honor her at the beginning of the year, for breaking the stolen base record and also being for an NCAA leader in the statistical categories. But, outside of the base running, outside of the offense, she made one of the greatest catches in USF postseason history last year in the seventh inning against Wichita State in the semifinal. That was a tough game because that was the game that George kind of got a little bit tired, and her back started bothering her a little bit. And we brought in Antoinette Hill, who did a fabulous job of finishing off Wichita State. But Lexi Johns making a catch in the seventh inning on a leadoff batter, still, I mean, that resonates all the time, the type of player that she was. And she was a complete team player also. So I had two really, really good leaders that left a legacy, that's for sure.
Both absolutely well said. I mean, and you're right. I remember watching that game. That was a thrilling, nerve-wracking game there. They got you to the championship game up there in Greenville. So obviously, you're going to get asked between now and the opening night about first Georgina. You don't replace her. They're going to ask you that. You're going to kind of cringe when they ask you that because you don't replace those type of people. But like I mentioned, it creates opportunity for the next player to step up and step in the role. So tell us a little bit about that pitching staff you've got and some of the names that you think will contribute and step in there and be the next one potentially, like you've had, because you've had a long list of great pitchers and you've had one that you lose a great pitcher, and next one steps up.
Yeah, no, Eric, you're absolutely right. If you think about it, like people would say the same thing about Monica Triner and then Leanne Ellis and then obviously Sarah Nevins and then Erica Nunn, and all of a sudden there's Georgina Cork, right? So if people do remember, and it's tough in context because everybody's in a now type situation, when George was a freshman, she didn't get the innings and she didn't get the bigs, and Erica when she was a freshman, sophomore, and so it builds up. So right now, the transition time is that you've got young pitchers on our staff, people like Peyton Dixon and Jaden Martinez, Morgan Grubb. Those guys are vying as first year pitchers to see who's going to get to that point, and with Antoinette Hill coming back and then picking up Gabrielle Nori, a transfer pitcher from Lehigh, who got Lehigh to the regional finals last year, the NCAA regional finals last year in Seattle. That's a great transition for us that we're not actually, losing a step in respect of quality through the year. Not probably don't have one pitcher right now that you could say is going to go and give you the complete games that number 22 gave us, right? But there's the build-up time, and so you have a staff again. And Eric, as you know, our team and my philosophy has always been, you're a staff until you don't have to be. Okay. And so you've got the cast of characters that you've already alluded to that are coming back with a lot of experience on the offensive side of the ball right now. And so it's going to be a different team. We've got a little bit more athleticism than we've had in the past. have a lot more speed, and we've kind of simplified the game plans, coming off of some years that maybe there was too much going on. So I feel really good about what's happening right now. Our schedule is daunting. If people look at it, go, oh my gosh, once again, USF, oh my gosh, look at that schedule. And you got to play the best, and I don't understand why people get afraid of a potential L, or a potential. Oh my gosh, it's a 0-0 game in the seventh, or it's a 5-5 game in the seventh. How do you handle that? How do you handle that? Is you're creating steel towards the end of the year that when you get to the postseason, nothing phases you. And so the experience coming back, they've already been through it, and now it's about getting those young pitchers in the fire as fast as possible and get them used to it.
How important is Josie Foreman to that equation? We've talked about her and what a great catcher she is, and calling, helping call games. She obviously offensively, she became important for you last year, led you in home runs, 8 homers at 29 RBIs. But her value behind the plate to help this staff, especially the young ones, I would imagine she's a big part of one of the leaders on this team that will help this pitching staff too.
It's a great question, okay, because you have, once again, we go back to the fact of, okay, no matter what came out of Georgia's hand was going to be effective, right? No matter what Josie called was going to be effective. Josie did a great job of like, okay, this is the situation and location, but they worked together. And so Josie's value to our program, beside her being a great person, a pretty powerful hitter, is the fact that she's able to show that the pitcher catcher relationship prior to the first pitch of the game being thrown is as important as it is during the ball game. Okay. And so, Josie has a great knack of being a suggester behind the plate. The pitcher is the ultimate, right? I'm going with that type of deal. So the trust factors that George and Josie had together, clicked right away. It was amazing. Sometimes that happens as a catcher and a pitcher, like, wow, we're on the same page, right from the get-go. Others have to work at it. And so you have to find those great combinations. And our catching core this year is really, really deep. We picked up another transfer from Central Connecticut State, and Ryan Eigenman, who has a great head for the game and is learning really, really quickly. And so then you have Lydia Castro coming back, right? And then you also have Emma Humplick coming back. And then you picked up a freshman from Puerto Rico, and Camille Ortiz, who's pretty darn good too. So you got some offensive guys behind the plate that can play elsewhere. It takes the pressure off having to catch every single ball game, back behind the plate. So we'll be a lot fresher behind the dish than we have been in the past.
Let's speak of your offense. You said more athletic, more speed than ever before, which is a strong statement considering you lost one of the great athletic base runners you've ever had in your program history in Alexis there. So talk about your offense. Who do you have seen step up this fall and you think will lead this spring?
Well, as you got to the end of the year, also last year, you saw these two players really come about a little bit more on the offensive side, and one of them was Megan Piero, who's gotten a lot more consistent over the last couple of years. I thought she should have had a couple more at bats in her sophomore year than she got, but she's really done a great job of going out there and simplifying the game. Megan Sheehan, who was just a fabulous person, came off ACL last year, had a great end of the year last year, started to find a power stroke beside being able to slap and run and hit away. So those two guys right now, those guys will be the catalysts of our program. And then to surround themselves with some newcomers, and then also to surround themselves with people that were here last year that would get to observe a little bit more of what was going on is a pretty good meshing of the puzzle. One of the better portal transfers that we got was a young lady whose name is Marissa Trivalpiece, came to us from Michigan State. She's out of Pennsylvania area, and she moves to the middle of the year. Alana Rivera will take the year off due to a knee surgery and some cleanup stuff there, and she'll be back next year. But Marissa is going to move into the middle of the infield, and her and Piero up the middle right now, great combinations. And so it gives us the opportunity to move some athletes around at third base and first base. Might move Jordan Cadlub in from the outfield over there. Emily Hanlon's a swing player too, and picked up a young freshman out of New York by the name of Alexa Galligani. Remember that name? It's going to be pretty special kid that's going to be able to play for us, and she can play every other position too. So, we're filling in some good things with some athletes. And my philosophy has been, you got a glove, you can play anywhere. It's not just, hey, I'm a shortstop, I'm a third baseman, I'm a first baseman, and We have one young lady on our team, Natalie Zweig. I think she can play 7 positions in one game. I mean, that's how good she is. So on the defensive side of the ball, we have no problem. So the athleticism is there.
Sounds like too. There might be one of the more versatile teams you've had in a while.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I was talking to the ESPN guy who was over here for the media day the other day. I said, look, 30 games, you might see 30 different lineups. And make sure you bring your eraser also or your block out, because my lineup card, which is usually, as you know, crazy at the end of a game, we're going to run it like a basketball team. And it might be, the only thing we don't have is team beat timeout. So you're going to have to keep up with what's going on, right?
Oh, I love that. That's going to be great. The statistician, whoever is that you're that's keeping track, that's the one that better get ready. That's going to be a lot of work there.
Got it. Absolutely right.
Well, you talk about, the young players. Do you have established leaders? Does that evolve as leaders this year? And do you like the leaders that are the vocal type, or do you like the ones that lead by example? What kind of type of leaders you have on this roster?
Well, that's a really great question. So leadership, is nothing but clarity, right? When we talk about that, and when you're speaking as a leader, now leadership on the ball field it's seen. Okay, it's not heard, right? And then the respect comes from, are you going to bust your butt every single day? Are you going to gain the respect of your teammates because this is what you do it the right way? And so we've had that, because we have good kids and we've got great GPA. We're over a 3.5 GPA as a team. We're always going to be there. So we have smart players. The smart players can get better quicker, right? And so that helps. But, we don't have any captains. We never have had captains. Only one captain on this team, and that's me. And I hold the rudder. And you guys row, and I'll let you know if you're not rowing hard enough, but you got to buy into this communal type of aspect of it's all about us. And so with that being said, obviously the longer you're here, the longer your tenure here is, you gain more wisdom and more experience, more context to pass down to the players of this is how we do it here. And they buy into it together. So, they evolve, they police themselves. And the one thing I don't let happen is that I don't let the leaders fall off the rails. So, the legislation and the law comes down from me. Okay. They implement it. And so that's the best way. It's always worked for us that way.
You mentioned that schedule, and I remember you told me last year, it's funny, people remembered your phone number last year all of a sudden about playing you this year after not being able to pick up the phone the last couple of years. Funny how that works. But you do have a challenging schedule. But I want to start with the opener because you got Michigan coming in, but it's going to be a little different. How strange is it going to be when you look on alongside the Michigan dugout and there's no Hutch?
She's going to be there. She's going to be. She's got Blue and Hayes in her, and I guarantee you she's going to be right there. And one of the better emails I got this year was from Bonnie Thole, saying, hey, look, I'm so excited that my first game is against the University of South Florida, strictly for the fact we've known each other for years and years, and it's a nice tradition. But, Hutch, she is, if people better understand Hutch, she's really a humble person. And she's genuine. She doesn't have a filter, which is great because you always know where you stand with her, right? But there's time like last year, like I wanted her to throw out the pitch in the first game. And she's like, I'm not doing it. I'm like, you're doing it. I'm not doing it. You're doing it. Okay. And I said, sometimes it's important to say thank you. I know it. I love you. But, she's such a great person. And talk about to us as coaches, like, hey, is that a great coach? Or hey, was it? You don't ask the right questions. The questions you would ask is, would you send your daughter to go to school there? And if somebody asked me, would you send your daughter to go to the University of Michigan with Carol Hutchins? There's no hesitation. Yes. Would you send your daughter to go to the University of Michigan with Bonnie Thole? Yes. Those are great people, okay, that teach our game and understand people. And so that's all you're looking for. So what a great career that she had. What a tremendous amount of influence she had, not only on the game, but on other student athletes, and coaches themselves. But she'll be there. So it's never going to be like, hey, I'm coaching against University of Michigan and Hutch ain't there. She's there. She's there. That team will still have Hutch in them no matter what. So because Bonnie has Hutch in her, right? You know what I mean? So that'll be pretty cool.
It will be. It'll be unique there. A lot of eyes will be on that matchup. And then, that's a tournament where you got, of course, Florida's there. You got Illinois State. They had their legendary coach retired as well. So it's kind of unique because I'm so used to seeing that tournament and all the legends in that weekend there.
No doubt about it. So it's two things that come about from those type of questions, right? It's like, hey, Eriksen, you're getting old. I'm like, yeah, right about that. So, and then you start to see, the game still continue on, and the game's not going to change. The game doesn't change. It's the faces will change, but or the names will change, but the faces don't. And so the game is a game. It'll be continued on, and all great programs. And we're so happy to have Ashley Waters of Boston U coming down, and Amy Cavell-Hogg, we're coming down with Boston College, and next year's team, next year's first year tournament, we've got Michigan back full time. For that tournament, Florida's in, Oregon State's coming in, and Illinois State will be back. And then we're trying to pick up another, hopefully an ACC team somewhere to get in, or a Big 12 team. But the schedule, it'll be great. And that place will be sold out every day, for that first 4 days of that season opener.
You mentioned Oregon State. Laura Berg is somebody that is looked up, considers you a mentor. She says she's talked to you a lot over the years about coaching. She was on your staff on the U.S. national team. Obviously, she was the most decorated Olympian ever. How did it feel seeing her make that run as a coach to OKC, a place, a run that you're familiar, how it feels? What was it like for you to see her make that run with Oregon State?
Yeah, so at the end of a college season, and if you've been around long enough to know, that once you're eliminated in a postseason, sometimes you're just, okay, I'm walking away from the television. I'm going to take a break. And what's going on. The Super Regionals going on. The College World Series going on. But because Oregon State was in it, I was watching, the whole time. And, a big Laura Berg fan, and a big fan of her, regardless if she's coaching or not coaching. And so, yeah, I was living and dying on each pitch with Oregon State last year, and so proud of what she's done, because it's so funny, the social media, and it's so funny how fans are, and the critique that some of us get, behind the anonymity of the veil of social media. And at one time, she was getting a little bit of that, and to see what she has done with that program, I'm so proud of her. She's and she's a first time parent, also going through that, and then coming off the Olympics, and people have no idea, how debilitating that could be, in respect of your life, with time commitments, and then going back to your college team. So what she did last year, I think all of us were big time rooters for Oregon State, and very, very proud of what she's done. She's such a wonderful human being.
No doubt. You mentioned the schedule. Clemson comes to your place. Tennessee's going to come to your place this year. Texas comes to your place. The only bad news about that is, as I've understood, Kat Osterman won't be able to make the trip because she's going to be giving birth around that time. So that's the only bummer news there. I mean, you got Texas to come to your place. You can't make the trip, Coach.
Well, things happen, right? My question to Kat on that one was like, how'd that happen? Okay. So, but to get Mike White, to leave the state of Texas and to come to Florida, I really appreciated what he's doing. We're going to return a trip there in 25 to reciprocate that. But I'm really happy that he's coming this way. And he came here with Oregon one year when they came through and made a swing through the state. So he understands the competition is pretty good. And the aspect of being able to reach out and show Texas as a recruiting opportunity for other kids in the state of Florida. So, these are the type of things that happen. And it's beautiful that time of year, you're going to get your games in down here in Florida because the weather's so good, right? And so people are taking advantage of it. But it's a nice ballpark we have, obviously. And the competition is always good. And we're able to wrangle other teams to come in here, make it worth your while when it comes to the RPI games and exposure and intimate setting. Each game's on ESPN all the time, so, we're fortunate. We're in a good situation to promote fast pitch softball throughout the country.
How do you feel about Kat becoming a media person, now doing analyst work there, doing games for the Longhorn Network there? She's turned into the media side now.
Yeah, and there's certain things that I have to talk to, like her and Mendoza and all that. Like, whatever went on in the USA program stays in the USA program. So you just have to make sure we're It's got to fall out of a lot of closets, so they need not to forget about that.
That's right. It's like the Fight Club. What stays in the Fight Club, that's the first rule. I mean, come on. Let's talk about the conference. Obviously, stacked league here. UCF obviously had an incredible year, historic year, hosting for the first time with nationals. He got to a super regional. Wichita State has been a program. It's been top 25. Coach Brett Benner there. Houston, I thought, came on late last year, really strong. They returned a good nucleus there. You got Stephanie Van Brakel now, the new head coach at Memphis. You got Tulsa and ECU there with young coaches. Your thoughts on the league here in this final year, in a year where you're hosting the conference tournament?
It's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a dogfight, and the interesting aspect of it is, when you start talking about Tulsa and ECU as maybe not being in the top 4 or 5. Hey, watch out! These teams are returning a lot of experience of what goes on, and these coaches, have done a great job and continue to do a great job. So my only down thoughts are that we're breaking the conference up, because this is a high RPI conference, a top 4 or 5 conference in the nation. And now that with Houston leaving, UCF leaving, it's too bad, because those are great rivalries. Every game was mean something, and I'm sure they're going to make their mark, in the next conferences that go on. And look, I guarantee you the conversation we have in 5 years from now is going to be a whole different landscape than it is today, and even next year, and so who knows what's going to happen. But I will tell you this: no matter what happens throughout, the conference changes, baseball and softball played in warm weather, and the opportunities to, if you're a school in the state of Florida, whether you're Florida Gulf Coast, Central Florida, South Florida, FIU, FAU, you're going to bring teams into play because of the sunshine and the warmth. And you're going to be able to recruit because of the sunshine and the warmth. We don't play football. We don't play basketball. We play outside. And so the Sun Belt teams will still, Louisiana, those teams will still be very strong, as they go on. And so I would continue to see that those Sun Belt programs are going to be great. There'll be attractive programs to go to. There'll be attractive programs to play against, and attractive programs to visit. But we are going to miss, I'm going to miss, Cindy, and I'm going to miss Kristen. They're good people. They're great for the conference. They're very progressive in their thoughts of what goes on. And then someday, you never know. You might be in the same conference. You might compete against them all the time, but I don't think you can get them off your schedule. You want to try to get them on your schedule as best you can.
How will that affect your program from a scheduling standpoint, considering not only are they leaving, but new members coming into the league next year? It's going to be a bigger league from a size standpoint. So I would imagine that it's going to adjust a little bit some of your schedules from the conference scheduling standpoint being different, which affects your non-conference schedule.
Eric, that's probably my biggest lament right now, is that the conference that we have is 7 to 8 teams, and so you're 18 to 21 conference games, and then you can really pick up RPI. And that's the best thing that we ever did with this conference, was our out-of-conference schedule for the American is tremendous, unbelievable. UCF's playing great teams, Wichita State's playing great teams. All these teams are playing great teams, including ourselves. But now you're going to be bringing in, I think the conference goes to 10 teams, right? So now it's 9 weekends. Before it was only 6 weekends. Now it's 9 weekends. And so you're not going to have the tournaments in March that you can go and either travel to or attract teams to. And so the conference RPI is going to go down. And that's just the human nature. People don't realize that, is that your RPI goes up at a conference by facing other teams. Okay. If you stayed in conference the whole time, you have to have a high RPI in your conference prior to. And because of that, you're eliminating RPI games. So it's a shorter window to try to get those RPI games, less games to try to get those RPI games. And some conferences are going to shut you out because of that. And that's understood. That's politics that go on, right? It's kind of like we talked about before, is when we had Georgina Corrick on the mound, it's tough to get teams to play us because they don't want to get a loss. Okay. Now that we don't have, everybody's calling like, hey, yeah. We want, right? So, but it's the same concepts. So the manipulation of what you have to do is you're going to have to go out. And if you're afraid of an L, then your conference RPI is not going to be very good. And so that's the biggest concern that I have right now, is that I think we're going to be in the same type of format that the American is in right now with women's basketball. Okay. Is that you have not a lot of high RPI guys, okay, whatsoever. And then once conference play starts, you're at the mercy of everybody else. So we have to, we're going to have to do some adjusting and thinking about how we're going to have to approach, maybe add some more midweek games. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But good, that's a great question.
Yeah. The other one I'm curious, last year, obviously, 3 teams from the state hosted a regional for the first time in softball. And I only bring that up because I feel like, you and UCF were always told, well, we can't have 3 teams host in a state in softball, even though they did it in baseball all the time. They got 3 to host. You've had teams in the past that should have hosted regionals. You had the memorable 2012 team that hosted that super regional. Nobody will ever forget that atmosphere at home. Was there a part of you that was proud the fact we got 3 teams in the state of Florida? Yeah, it's about time that we break that barrier. It should have happened a long time ago. But now moving forward, we could get over that nonsense and just have the best teams host regardless of geography.
It depends who's in charge. You hate to say this, right? But well, if the Republicans are in charge, then this is what's going to happen. Democrats are in charge. Well, this was in college softball. It's the same way. Okay, like, all right, who's in charge and who's going to make the decisions on that championships committee? Okay, like if you're laden with Power 5 in the championships committee, okay, well, you don't have a chance. Okay, but if you're equal distribution and right is right, you got a chance. Okay, so yeah, those are things I can't control. The only thing you control is okay, is our schedule strong enough? Is our record strong enough to say that we deserve to host? And so you have to, that's the only thing you can control, right? That's it. And so you can't worry about all the other stuff. We've had one thing on the back of our shirt since I took over as the head coach. You know how people change? They're like, okay, this year it's going to be like, be who you are. Or like next year it's going to be like, okay, keep chopping. For us, it's always been WIN. And that's it. Just win. Just win every day in life. Just win every day on a ball field. Win the situation. The scoreboard will take care of itself and go. But that's the only thing we can control is what we're trying to do. And so we're going to try to do it again. And if chips fall, they fall. They fall. Great. We'll be okay. So that's it. You can't get crazy about it.
I feel like I'm imagining this now because I know Jose Fernandez pretty well, and he gets pretty fired up around selection weekend in basketball about how they've had teams that should have hosted the first couple of rounds and didn't, and he's been very vocal about that. I'm envisioning you like running into him and calming him down, and right because you two have a lot in common probably and have dealt with similar issues. I feel like you've had to calm him down behind the scenes because he gets fiery about those topics.
No, you're spot on, and I have. Because win, just win and don't worry about it, and then everybody will shut up, and then next year they'll go, you know what, they won. And so he's done a really good job over the last 10 years of funneling it down to I ain't worried about anybody else. Now we're gonna worry about us, and you have to because you can't put yourself out there and step on your tongue. That's the worst thing in the world that can happen. So don't do it. And just worry about what you have. Stay inside the USF cocoon of what you're trying to do. And in the long run, we're all going to benefit from that.
You mentioned just focus what you can control, focus on just trying to win. What's the key for this year's Bulls team to accomplish your goals and accomplish just focusing on winning the day here with this roster that returns a lot of players, young in the pitching, but experienced elsewhere? What's the keys for this team?
Yeah, number one is we don't have goals, okay? And you know what? I go round and round with people about that because when you reach a goal, it's over, right? So we have dreams to be excellent, dreams to try to be perfect in a practice day, dreams to do all these things. Those dreams are infinite that, okay, they're still dreams, right, that go on. And so for us, it's just to try to play the game the best way we can that particular day. The scoreboard is going to take care of itself. You know this as well as I do. You could play really, really well and not end up winning, and you could play like crap and end up with a W. I'm not really pleased unless we play the game well, the right way, and we've, as people have seen in the postseason, we played the game really, really well and ended up on a short side, and there's times that we played during the season really poorly, and we wound it up on the good side. So, we just want to try to play each day the right way. And that's always been the way I've approached it. You don't drive yourself crazy. Your team doesn't get nuts, that type of deal, and enjoy what's happening. And don't mistake that for not being competitive. Okay. Because between you and I and whoever's watching this, and my team kind of knows this, but if we don't win, okay, it's really tough for me for 2-3 hours to be very social and eat. So it's always like I'm back in the office trying to win. Okay, what do we need to do better tomorrow? For that, and then after a while you let it calm down. But I don't ever go home regardless after a ball game for 3 hours, because I don't want to bring anything home with me. Just leave it here, or leave it in the hotel, or whatever you got to do. But don't mistake what I said for not being competitive. And that's the one thing that I'm very proud of, is that people don't know how competitive we are, and because it's personal. Being competitive is very personal.
How does having Lisa now full-time on your staff, Lisa Navis, among some of the new faces on your staff, help that too? I thought that was a very underrated move there, having her full-time on your staff.
She's such a pain in my butt. She tells me, this is not doing, this is what you should be doing. Da 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 da. So she's been a sister to me for 35 plus years. I knew her when she was at Barry University. I knew when she played at Oklahoma City University as a player. Coached against her my first year coaching at USF. And she's one of those players that was always understanding the game, always continue to ask questions. As a head coach at Barry, what she did with that program right there was phenomenal. And then getting the assistant jobs where she did, and then the head coach's job at NC State. And, the interesting part about the NC State program was that NC State program that went to the Super Regionals, that was her team. The year before, they let her go for who knows what reason. They were winning, right? But the administration was like, we want to make a change. Well, that was her team. And then you could see after that NCAA regional, super regional team, that team went like that. So she was getting the right players and getting the right stuff, and then did what she did at South Carolina, and see where South Carolina went as assistant coach. And then a couple things happened to bring her back to the state of Florida. And I'm like, hey, if you're not doing anything, I got a position for you. And it was like, boom. So it's clicked really well. Very proud of her. Like I said, very, very close relationship that I have with her, and trust her completely.
Yeah, part of a great staff you've got, and I know a lot of Bulls fans will be excited to see your team play in a great facility. I look forward to being there. I'm going to be there a couple times this year, going there in March, and then the conference tournament, which is that's going to be fun. What's it like? That's my last question. When you've hosted this conference tournament many a time. Tell us, for those that may not be aware, what goes behind hosting a conference tournament.
Well, it's actually started about January 7th, in respect to trying to get the logistics together, obviously with the hotels for the conference, and then make sure the television stuff is squared away, locker rooms, the time frames, the grounds crew, you name it. It's a big production, and I'm not going to say it's obviously it's not as big a production as a Super Bowl or, the College World Series, but on scale of making sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's, it's a big, big deal. And we want to do it bigger and better than this conference has ever done it before. So you're always trying to do something in advance. We're very fortunate to have, Chris Pierce as our, not just our senior women's administrator, but also our sport administrator that's very detail oriented. And she's already taken a lot off my plate, as has Jim Badia, our director of operations. That was another great pickup, getting Jim Badia here, who's been a director of operations for Auburn, Arizona State, head coach at Tennessee, head coach at Oklahoma, knows, what coaches need. So he's kind of like my radar O'Reilly. I'm always like on my desk, I'm like, hey, Jim, thanks. It's already here. For me right now, my life is really, really a lot easier with a full coaching staff. Courtney Radke joined us also, from University of North Florida, and then Carla Claudio, who played for me here, was also a roommate of Ronnie Gajownik. So you got softball minds, that continue to come in here. So sometimes I feel like I just want to pull up a lawn chair with an umbrella in center field and watch what's going on. It's been luxurious this year, to say the least, compared to just having two coaches, in a volunteer assistant over the last 3-4 years. So yeah, we're doing a lot better, but there's a lot behind the scenes.
That's a lot of competitive. That's a competitive staff in there with some of the accomplishments that some of the former players on that staff and that what they've accomplished in the sport there.
Well, you think about it, and then you add Georgina to that mix, and then Otto stayed with us also. So that those coaches meetings are think tanks. I mean, they're fabulous. I mean, finally, to that point where I'm getting that cerebral scratch in my brain again about, all right, let's go. And the exuberance and enthusiasm that everybody's bringing to this year is lending itself to setting up a tremendous foundation, for whatever might happen this year, but also for next year and the year after and the year after that. So very happy, very, very happy.
Well, I look forward to seeing you and the staff, like I said, when I go down to Tampa this year during the season. But in the meantime there, Coach, always appreciate you taking the time from a busy schedule to talk to us and talk some softball and life lessons, and always appreciative. And I'll see you during the season.
Well, I only have one question for you.
Okay, it's fair.
Who is the bobblehead behind you over your right ear?
Oh, that's the Marlins. That's Dontrell Willis from the Marlins World Series. I'm a Marlins fan.
Lefty. I can throw it a little bit.
You can throw lefty. We got to get the Rays to get a banner up there too. I mean, everybody else, everybody else in Tampa's got banners. The World Series. That's what they're gonna do.
They do for sure. But thanks for the time today, man. It's always great talking to you.